Welcome to Could Be Pretty Cool News, the podcast where we dive into the exciting world of creative entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Casey, and together we'll embark on a journey to explore this dynamic ecosystem from multiple angles, including academia, research and data, community building, and compelling personal narratives from creative entrepreneurs themselves. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered as we uncover the stories and strategies behind building successful creative ventures. It's time to discover why the world of creative entrepreneurship could be pretty cool. Up first on today's episode is a conversation with Kimberly Fennell, founder of the company Biz-Savvy Artist. 11 years ago, Kim spotted a gap in the market that many of us might have missed. She saw talented artists struggling with the nuts and bolts of running a business. We're talking about those seemingly small details that can make or break a career, like following up on contacts, managing schedules, and even properly labeling demo CDs. As Atlanta continues to cement its place as a hub for film, music, and creative arts, initiatives like Kim's Biz-Savvy Artist are crucial. So, to start off with, if I could have you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what it is that you do.
So good evening. My name is Kimberly Fennell. I am the founder of Biz-Savvy Artist. We produce an event called Biz-Savvy Artist Academy where we do entrepreneur workshops for independent artists in music, film, literary, visual, and performing arts. This year will be our 11th year. And so our objective is to provide technical support, resources, training, and also connect the creatives with other experts in the industry and help them to be successful creative entrepreneurs.
Amazing. So, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Did you start off in the arts? Did you start off in business? How did you end up becoming a creative entrepreneur with a company that helps other creative entrepreneurs?
So I am originally from New York. I've always been passionate about the arts. Like one of the things we loved to do growing up was going to plays, going to arts festivals, going to concerts, things like that. So I always had a passion for the arts. I relocated to Atlanta for college. I went to Clark Atlanta University and studied mass communications and started getting introduced to the entertainment industry from college. So I interned with a record pool and worked there for a little while. I also worked with someone that owned an independent music store. Got to meet a lot of independent artists that way. Also volunteered with a lot of the music conferences that were taking place locally, film festivals, things like that. And I was realizing, so the other part to that is when I was working at the record pool and when I was working at the music store, I was doing like administrative back office stuff. So it was more like business management type of work. And so when I decided to go out on my own, I decided to do virtual admin, but specialize in working with the entertainment industry. And when I was networking, a lot of artists couldn't connect what I was doing. So when I would explain my business, they were like, "So you're a publicist?" And I was like, "No." And they were like, "Oh, so you're a manager?" And I was like, "Not exactly." And they weren't really connecting how they could utilize my services. And so then it started dawning on me that a lot of them were very talented and good at what they did, but didn't necessarily have a good grasp of business side of it. And so that's where the concept for Biz Savvy Artists to play. And I decided to focus on opportunities to connect artists with more business resources and training so that they could understand how they could use different types of services and certain things that they would need to have in place in their businesses in order to be successful, in order to thrive, grow, scale, all of that good stuff. And then for them to be able to treat what they were doing more like a business and less like, oh, this is just something I do as like a hustle. And so if you have more structure to it, then you can kind of see where having an administrative support person could fit into the work that you're doing and help you to focus on your craft while the other business stuff is being handled by a support professional. So that's how the concept of it started.
Talk to me about some of the specific, I guess, missing pieces that when even before you started your own company that you were seeing artists and creatives were missing. Was this like accounting? Was this knowing how to formalize and become an LLC? Like what were the skills that you were seeing most often? Like, oh, they should probably know that.
So yeah, I think it was all of both of those things. I think a lot of them did not have any infrastructure in place. And so it could be things like calls not being returned, emails not being responded to. It could be a lot of things that would happen is I would go to music conferences and then I would get blank CDs and I would be like, I don't know whose CD this is. There's no name, there's no phone number, or it would be kind of scribbled on there. And then I'd be like, okay, I can't read the name that's on this. So I don't even know who gave this to me when I'm looking at it like a week later. And so it was a lot of those like basic things where it was like, okay, maybe give me a card that's typed out that has your information on it so it's legible. Maybe use like labels and type it out and stick it on the CD. And so it was more of those types of things that I was seeing more frequently. And then it would also be things like, oh, I would have conversations that would be like, oh, I met all of these people, but I don't know how to follow up with everybody. Or I got all of these business cards, but I'm not getting back in touch with everybody. Or I forgot to reach out to somebody. Or I would also have an issue with meeting people and then scheduling time to meet with them. And then they would forget about the appointment. So then it was, okay, so maybe you need somebody like helping you to keep track of this, or if they're double booking themselves. So all of those types of things were like some of the things that I was coming across when I was interacting with artists.
Yeah, I mean, it's these little things that a creator business, especially like a solo creator, it almost is like until you aren't doing those things, you don't realize that they're so key and critical to being able to continue your operations effectively. And
Right.
so for you to be able to recognize that and then go, "Oh, I actually need to like formalize my operations and make a business to help people do this," I think is like a spark of creativity. And so, can you talk to us a little bit more about, okay, so you form the business now, now you are the person who is in charge of this thing. What happens next?
So the way I came up with the idea is I was reading Entrepreneur magazine. I was in between jobs, couldn't find work. And in the back of Entrepreneur magazine, there were all of these how to guides for how to start different types of businesses. One of them was how to start a business support company. And as I was reading the description of it, I was like, that's what I was already doing when I was working with the record pool and when I was working at the independent label. So I was like, so maybe I could do that on my own and just focus on entertainment industry. Because I was like, entertainment businesses need admin just like any other type of company would. And so I had a list of contacts that I had met working at both of those companies. And so I just shot out an email and was like, hey, this is what I'm doing. These are some of the services I'm offering. If you know anybody or if you're interested, let me know. And it just went from there. Another thing that I did was I started looking for trade organizations that were specific to entertainment. So one of the organizations I connected with was NABFEM, the National Association of Black Female Executives in Music and Entertainment. I also connected with the Atlanta Black Chambers, and I started volunteering with them, which was introducing me to people. And then they were also seeing me work in the capacity of volunteering. And then it would be like, oh, I need somebody that does what you do. And so that was how I started to make more connections and build my client base.
I would love if we could for a moment to talk more about the volunteering piece. This is something that with guests that we've had sometimes talking about, unpaid internships or
Mhm.
volunteering as a professional, it's almost kind of like frowned upon. But can you talk to us more about
how volunteering actually led you to making the connections that you eventually needed for your business.
It allowed me to connect with the people that were running and operating things. A lot of the music conferences, I was working the registration desk. So I'm getting to see who everybody is coming in. I'm getting to connect names with faces and, oh, this is the person that runs this organization. This is the person that runs this venue. Oh, this is the person that works at this record label. And so then I could see them in other places and reconnect them. Be, hey, I saw you at such and such a conference and just wanted to reconnect. How are you doing? So one, it allowed me to get into places that I didn't have to pay the registration fee for. It allowed me to connect with people. And then two, it put me in a position where other people were actually seeing me work. And then they were willing to hire me to work for them. And so it was the combination of those three things. So I found volunteering very beneficial at the time because it was putting me again in different places to connect with different people in different fields. So I was not one person that was like, oh, I'm married to just music. And so I was volunteering at a music conference one day. I'm at a film festival the next day. It was that, so it allowed me to be in all of the different places and meet all of the different people. And you really never know who you're going to connect with and where they're going to be. So yeah, I've volunteered at all different kinds of things and found it very beneficial.
Yes, and it's laid the groundwork for what you're doing now. So, can you tell us how long has Biz Savvy Artists been in business?
Sure. So it launched 2013. We did our first event August of 2014. So it's been, this year will be the 11th year that we've done the Biz-Savvy Artist Academy event.
So, yes, tell us more about that. I mean, 11 years to do an event that is like very extensive for a lot of folks. Events are hard. And
They are.
so, how did the inception of the event start and how have you continued to keep the momentum year over year?
I think I was working on newsletter content and I was doing research. The concept at the time was I was trying to connect content to different types of observations. And so one of them was National Entrepreneurship Week. And as I was digging through their website, they had a concept for creatives. And basically, it was like doing this event where creatives did like a business pitch, and then they would be selected to perform in an entertainment festival. But basically, the pitch had to talk about how they would grow their business, how they would leverage the festival opportunity, and I was like, I like that idea. And I started kind of thinking of, okay, how can I implement this idea? And it eventually, for me, morphed into I want to not just be like, here's this pitch competition, but how do I prep them for the pitch competition? So, what if I did this event where we had workshops on the different elements of a business plan? So, we talk about marketing, we talk about accounting and bookkeeping, we talk about creating your operational structure, we talk about building your team and what does that look like. And so by the time I got done, I had like 8 different sections, and I was like, we could do a track for all of these different industries. And of course, I had to scale it back because I was like, first go round, I can't do like this huge multi-track, multi-day event thing. So the first year we did over 2 days. It was eight different workshops. I, researched people through Instagram. I found entertainment attorneys to talk about like creating the business structure and intellectual property. We had somebody talk about marketing, PR, product placement, licensing your music, like figuring out how to license your music. We had a film expert talk about the production process. We had an actual entertainment accountant, so they were able to kind of break down royalties and revenue streams and, how to manage your books and all of that kind of stuff specific to entertainment. And so I think that very first year, because I was kind of doing it solo and trying to navigate everything, it wasn't marketed as well as I needed it to. So we maybe had a handful of people maybe it was like 10 people total, including the people that were like helping me execute the event. I would say maybe around year 5 or 6, reconnected with the Atlanta Black Chambers, and we partnered with their arts and entertainment committee. And so we collaborated on doing it together for a few years. And then we started reaching out to more notable speakers. So we had the first year we had Dr. Yama Brown, who was James Brown's daughter, and we're drawing a blank on her name, Isaac Hayes' daughter. We had Isaac Hayes' daughter. They kind of did a presentation together. Then the next year was COVID. So we had to transition and figure out how to do it online. And we did a live stream through Zoom on Facebook. So it's just kind of evolved as we've done it. We've added to it and figured out how to incorporate more well-known speakers, but the concept, the core of it is still the same. We wanted to make sure we still kept it something that was intimate, where the people are able to actually engage and interact with the speakers, get their questions answered, and things like that. So that's the gist of how the event has come to be and evolved over the last 11 years.
So, what is your end goal? In particular, here in Atlanta, we hear about, the film industry, the music industry, but for indies and independent creators and folks who are just, trying to get into the business, sometimes it's hard to kind of connect the how can I be a part of these industries as I'm just starting out. And
Right.
so I'm wondering for you, what is your ultimate goal with throwing these events here in Atlanta?
So the ultimate goal is for Biz-Savvy artists to become like an arts entertainment business incubator. So we wanted to begin to incorporate some programming that's taking place in between the annual events. And then we also want to, the vision that I had was to do something that was comparable to like the demo days that the tech industry does, but do it for creatives. And so we would do like a festival type of situation where artists are performing or doing whatever their craft is, but we're also bringing in investors, and we're bringing in execs from corporations where they can establish those relationships to help build their business. If it's, coordinating a tour and they want to go internationally and they want to partner with Coca-Cola, for example, kind of being able to help them coordinate making that happen. So that ultimately is like the big picture vision, is for it to become like an incubator where we're helping them, facilitate the making their business happen.
It's amazing that you have that vision and the comparison to tech, so many people, it's hard for a lot of big sponsors and investors to see creative careers as being venture backable, if you will. And so the fact that you've identified a way to say like, hey, you could get a return on your investment if you're like on the ground floor investing in these creators, seeing how you could partner, I think is brilliant. And I'm totally rooting for you. We are rooting for you over here. It could be pretty cool. And so, how can people find out more about the upcoming 11th year of the Biz-Savvy Artist Academy and all that you do in general?
Absolutely. So the website is bsaacademy.com. So all of the information about the upcoming event this year will be on there. We're really excited this year to have Jasmine Guy as our keynote. So she'll be doing a nice fireside chat. You can also follow us online. We keep all of our updates posted on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. And so if you're following us on social media, Biz-Savvy Artist, you can also get information that way. And you can email me at info@bizsavvyartist.com, and I will get back to you and answer any questions you may have.
Fantastic. Well, yes, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
now we move from empowering artists with business acumen to using art as a tool for social change. Our next guest, Cherie Danielle, takes us on a journey of creative evolution and cultural awakening. Cherie is a self-described cultural worker whose artistic path has taken her from the stages of New York to the front lines of community organizing in Atlanta. Cherie's story challenges our conventional notions of success in the arts and invites us to consider a broader, more socially conscious definition of what it means to be a creative professional.
My name is Cherie Danielle. I consider myself a cultural worker. The expertise that I am in, I will say, are acting, writing, specifically playwriting, screenplay writing, and stand-up comedy. I also do poetry. I first got into the arts probably through dance, because that's what my older sister did. And shortly after being in ballet and tap and all that, I realized I wasn't really a great dancer. From there, I got into some singing, voice lessons, got into that. I got into that. I don't know. There wasn't really a specific time where I kind of got out of it, but it just was never my focal point. I think the big thing for me is probably when I was around 8, I went to a summer camp and we did like a production of The Little Mermaid, and I was a Little Mermaid. And from there, I just always knew I wanted to act. And then I went to School of Performing Arts is kind of when I kind of saw a bigger shift in my life. I went to High School of Performing Arts and I majored in drama, minored in vocal music. And from there, I went to acting school. And then I was rejected from my second year of acting school. And so from there, I just decided to stay in New York and continue to be creative. And eventually I started writing my own work. The first major project of that was me doing my solo show, The Diary of an Afro Goddess, which was nominated for an Adelco Award. And I was able to perform it at the Wow Cafe Theater, the New York Poets Cafe, the Shabazz Center in Harlem, the DC Black Theater Festival, and I also did a run in Atlanta as well, where I'm originally from. And from there, I started writing short films, and I made a few short films. And around 19, people have been kind of teasing me with the whole stand-up comedy thing and saying, well, if you can do a solo show, you can probably do stand-up comedy. And I kind of agreed. I dated several comedians and I would just be like, I could do this, And so then I started doing stand-up. This was my last year in New York where I decided to do that. And then back to Atlanta late 2019 after I started to do stand-up comedy, and did it through the pandemic. Was able to go to the American Black Film Festival in 2022. And it's just been a roller coaster ever since. At this moment in my life, I'm kind of taking a few steps back from stand-up and focusing more on my writing and my own personal creative projects. But so now I kind of have a new outlook of everything with these past few years. I'm still kind of discovering it. That's why I didn't know, if I should even be on here, because I'm just like, I'm very anti a lot of stuff that most artists are. So I'm just like, through this year, I've kind of gotten back on the path of creating art, mainly art towards liberation. I was inspired by a lot of different world events and different things that kind of put me on the path of being a cultural worker, where it's like my work reflects the culture and isn't necessarily a business venture or anything to me anymore. I work in tech sales, so I'm no longer really trying to make a living from my art. I more so am trying to align my art with the liberation of people. Now, I was first challenged earlier this year as I got deeper into my activism. Like, I always wanted to be doing activist work and always heard about like artists being activists, but I never was able to really make it make sense in my head. And I always juggling trying to make this a full-time career was always like a back burner thing of like, oh, well, when I get rich, I'll give back or something like that. Because I was so focused on trying to, take care of myself through my career. And so, I mean, around the time that Black Lives Matter got bigger and, there was a few groups in New York and stuff, I was trying to find my bearings there, but I still didn't really understand the act of organizing, and especially radical organizing, until I came back here in Atlanta and started to see the work around Stop Cop City. And then from there to the anti-genocide work in Palestine. And so there was like a gradual consciousness, I guess, growing inside of me. And then around the same time, like last year, I secured a job in tech sales. And so then it was like, all right, well, now I'm not necessarily, the whole thing was like, okay, I get this job in tech sales, then I'll be able to work from home, have more time to audition, then eventually leave tech sales and then be this full-time actress and, have all this money. But then I guess once I got the job and I started actually making the money, this, that, and the third, like a few things came to realization of like, one, like I actually don't, really have to be trying to get famous anymore if I don't necessarily want to. I mean, not that it was ever like I never wanted to be. It's just that I thought that was the only way I was going to be able to survive. So there's just kind of like this wake up call of like, you don't actually have to be like this working actress. You honestly were more happier when you focused on the work that you created yourself, as opposed to trying to be a part of other things that may or may not reflect things that you actually believe in. There was the realizing that none of this is fair. Like, as far as the system, this capitalist system, none of it is fair. Like, my job now is the easiest job I've ever had, and I make the most money. It's just like people work way harder for much less. And it's just like, why is that? So it's also like me actually making money is when I became kind of like very anti-capitalist, because I was just like, there's nothing special about the work that I do as far as the work in tech sales and like, just all these things that I think are constantly pushed on artists of like financial freedom and financial stability and like, and just all these sorts of things. And, you must look at your art as a business. And if you're not looking at your art as a business, then it's not like a real thing and it doesn't matter. And it's just like, there was somebody in my close circle that really kind of challenged me. It was like, do you ever think of like what art looks like in socialist countries? Like what is an artist there? And so then that just kind of made me thinking of how much the Hollywood dream or artistic dream aligns with the American dream, and how much in our mind we view capitalism, even in the arts, even though the arts at its core is the anti-institution, a liberating thing, we've turned it into like this American dream machine because of what we grow up believing and learning and feeling like is success. And so this year has been really a transformative year where I've been just kind of trying to rebuild what does success look like to me as an artist. And I think now, especially that I'm organizing and doing work in the community, and I'm doing work with former Black Panthers, with political prisoners, with these people that, they love poetry and love arts too, but they just see a different meaning behind it. And so with that, it's really influenced my journey and how I define art. And that's when somebody sent me an article that defines what a cultural worker is, and just like how a lot of artists will say my art is my activism. A lot of times they're kind of lost in it as well because they're not actually doing the work. And so when you're actually in those spaces, when you're actually looking at the people that you claim to be making stories for and helping, like you realize how much maybe your work isn't even really aligned with like what they think is good or matters. And so I think being in that community and being able to see people of different walks of life, people who have always been for these things, has really transformed the way I even approach my work. I mean, like I said, I think a lot of it is really collective dreaming is what I've kind of been getting into. Like a lot of, because in the society we're taught to have like our dream and our big dream, and we get that car, that house, our mom, that mansion or whatever. It's very individualistic, right? And so I think I've just kind of gotten back into the idea of collective dreaming. And I think for me, my dreams are, what I'm trying to gear my dreams more toward is like, what is the benefit of the collective, and how can I be an anchor for that or vehicle for that. So I think, working in community spaces, I think, art is a great way to build community. So it's like, to me, success is like, if I do a show about something that I think is important, like the success of the show isn't necessarily, oh, did she, have a great performance? Did we like her writing style? Like, that's cool. It's complimentary to me. But the collective success is, okay, have I gotten more people interested in this cause and supporting it and rallying around it? That's like one aspect of it. And two is educational. Art is political education. So having people learn about things and learn terms or think of the world in a different way than they might have before, I think that is a thing of success for me. And then being able to also, and then thirdly, being able to also influence artists that come into this space wanting to make change and wanting to make a difference. But like I said, because of societal pressures, like a lot of the times you get steered into like a different direction with that. Like I said, this is a year of setting, doing organizing. I'm meeting with activists of the past, activists that are doing it still, and newer activists of the future. So like I said, I'm doing the work in my org, community movement builders. I'm also connecting with older activists, the Jericho movement org as well, that helps political prisoners and has ex-Black Panthers involved in that org as well. So it's like I'm doing the work, trying to kind of find my bearings and really find the stories that I want to tell. The main project that I'm focused on right now is rewriting my solo show, because I think the premise of my solo show was correct in a sense, but you write things based on what you know at the time. But I feel like I know much more now, 8 years later. So those are like my two current projects that are kind of at the top for me. I have a former Black Panther that I'm building a friendship with that also writes plays and does work. So we're trying to figure it out as well. And then even when it comes to stand-up, I'm trying to change my approach in stand-up and just try to figure out how can I do more comedy for change besides, comedy just out of my own, little bitter stuff. So I'm just trying to figure out how can I still keep my same comedic voice, but like be a bit more thought-provoking with it. I'm still doing stand-up, but I have to kind of come to terms with the type of stand-up that I want to actually be and how far I want to actually go with it. So I'll say my biggest advice is focus on the things that you care about. I think sometimes, particularly in election years, we focus more on the actual people and the arguments and the pettiness and the semantics and the pandering, and we focus on all the faces of all of it. And I think we have to stay focused on the issues and the things that we care about the most. So I think if you stay focused on the actual issues, if you stay focused on, the fact that we have these cop cities growing, the fact that we lost Sonia Massey, the fact that there's still a genocide happening in Palestine, the fact that there's genocide happening in Congo, if you focus on those issues and continue to figure out how you can contribute and make those things better, focus on the things in your community and how you can make those better and how your art may align with that.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Until next time, we encourage you to continue nurturing your process. Farewell, and may all of your creative endeavors flourish. Could Be Pretty Cool News is a Could Be Pretty Cool original production that was workshopped as a part of the 2023 Google News Initiative Pre-Launch Lab. This episode was edited by Trinity Jackson. Our executive producer and host is Casey Willis, and our production coordinator is Liz Moore. The original theme music was composed by Camille Stennis, and our cover art was designed by Aaliyah Johnson. Special thanks to our guests. To find out more about them, you can visit our newsletter at couldbeprettycoolnews.substack.com. Thank you for listening.